Hi there. I'd like to speak with you in this vlog about some relationships between craniosacral therapy and anatomy. And in this particular vlog, I like to talk about craniosacral therapy and the glymphatic system and its relationship, especially to memory, whether the memory is well and good or whether there's problems with such things as Alzheimer's and dementia. So let's start with a couple of definitions. What is the glymphatic system? This is an exciting new area of research that scientists have defined over the last few years. And in fact, a group of therapists and scientists have been awarded a Nobel Prize for its discovery in the last decade or so. Now, glymph literally means glue, and lymphatic relates to what we call the drainage area of the brain. Just like there's a lymphatic system in the body, scientists have found there's a correlate to that in the brain. And glymph, or the glue, also relates to what we call the glial system in the body, which has to do with these structures in the body which hold all the neurons and synapses together. So it's been known for decades that there's an existence of this glymphatic system in the body, or the glial cells, but they haven't been very well studied. And in point of fact, to give you an idea and a perspective, there's about 10 billion neurons in the brain, but about 10 times as many, or 100 billion glial cells in the brain. So you can think of the glial cells as the stuffing which kind of holds all the neurons and synapses, which transfers and transmits all this electrical information from one place to another in the brain. But neurologists have not studied this glymphatic system very much, and only in the last 10 years this has become the hot new topic for scientific research. Now, while we're excited about it in terms of craniosacral therapy, is that this research on the glymphatic system does a lot to explain the efficacy and results that we have begun to discover with craniosacral therapy and improving memory, whether someone has had a concussive injury, such as in football players, or whether when people are developing early to mid to even late stage dementia. So it's exciting. Now, think of the glial system as a very fine network of tendrils deep inside the brain. Now, we know that in our understanding of the craniosacral system, there's a membrane that basically lines the inside of the head, kind of like a shower cap. And this membrane is only about as thick as a newspaper on end. But this membrane has a very important function because that's where the cerebral spinal fluid flows and helps protect the brain and nurtures it with neurotransmitters and that sort of thing. So it's very important, and craniosacral therapy really keys on the existence of this membrane system to help get the kind of improvements that we've seen with craniosacral therapy. However, this glymphatic system is a newer kind of cut in terms of just how profound the circulation of cerebral spinal fluid and what's called extracellular fluid can be in the body. And think of it like this. You have the periphery of the brain, and then you have all these billions of tendrils going deep into every nook and cranny and tendril of the brain. And the way I think of it, it's like if you were to see a spider web in the morning and a little drop of moisture, and that drop of moisture comes down and deeply goes right to the center of the spider web. Well, in this analogy, that little drop is equivalent of moisture, is equivalent to cerebral spinal fluid, which flows in the brain from the periphery and via these structures of the glial cells, some of which are called astrocytes. They're like a pathway which allows this fluid to trickle in a very micro version into the deep recesses of the brain. So you can think of billions and billions of microchannels in the brain where this structure of fluid is drawn deeply within the brain. Now, why this is important in terms of memory and Alzheimer's is that these astrocytes, for example, if there's inflammation in the brain, can swell up. And so these microchannels in the brain can become narrower and more restricted. And along with that, as people age, often if there's more inflammation in the brain, there's less flow of this cerebral spinal fluid. So it's like a river where the water table lowers and becomes progressively lower, and then all the mud and sludge and silt gunks everything up. And in the glymphatic system, this gunking up of the brain, so to speak, is equivalent to all of the amyloid plaques and neurofibrillary tangles tangling up and clogging up the brain. So it's as if in all these billions of microchannels in the brain, there starts to be an interference, and unfortunately, these amyloid plaques begin to also destroy all the synapses and neurons, which are key to transmitting information from one spot to another. And they basically begin to be destroyed. So scientists at University of Rochester, for example, suggest that if there were a way to increase the flow of cerebral spinal fluid to near normal levels, perhaps these particles and amyloid plaques could be washed away. And so not only does this have efficacy in terms of prevention, but also in terms of even possibly reversal of these deteriorating plaques that we talk about in terms of Alzheimer's dementia. So the glymphatic system is another way to really explain the deep structures of the brain and how techniques like the still point technique in CranioSacral therapy can help reverse this process. So I just wanted to share this perspective with you on the glymphatic system. And next we'll talk about some correlates to that in terms of sleep and how this correlates to the glymphatic system. And then also in another vlog coming up, we'll talk about the brain and the gut and digestion and the immune system as well. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you again soon.